Hi, my name is Zachary Angelette, and I'm going to be going over something that I was kind of working on. I sort of showed it a little bit earlier um, with Go Cobra and Go Viper. I was just going to kind of go over what I was working on with it. It ended up being something that really just was a single developer tool. It's really not something you could share with a team or whatever because it generates code, like generates server code and everything. So got a very narrow use case and very narrow I don't know where it actually could even be used. So basically, what's going on here is I have the Go Cobra and the Go Viper kind of set up. The initial kind of file where it sort of would do everything is in the CR file, and I'll link the GitHub or GitLab. I'll link in the bottom of the video. But anyways, and part of the reason why I'm doing this is just because I don't know, maybe someone can make some tool for their group or their developers based off of it in some form. I imagine you could, especially with Cobra making the CLI so easy, the ability in Go to do bash scripts, and then Viper reading configs. There's obviously some there for teams of people. It's just not something that I made here for teams of people, only for myself. So anyways, I was just going to go over it. So we have the CR command. Really, this is more like the init function, so to speak, as far as generating code. It just creates the initial folders and files, sort of, so to speak. And this part of it is pulling in the data into the config, which is this. And really, all this is doing is allowing for data to be spread between these different CLI commands. And so the create one is really one that just kind of at first creates it all. There are some sort of functions that I made that write to the config and create it. Because if you're going to generate code, you might as well create and generate the config file code too. And anyways, I'm sure there's a million different ways to do this and probably better ways, but this is what I came up with, or at least what I found online. And so this basically creates the folder con, and it basically checks and gives its user permission. Then it creates the file. This part was kind of tricky because you have to make sure you're in the directory that you're supposed to be when you do create the file, because this slash matters a lot. Because if you're going a couple folders deep, obviously that's going to matter. It also matters where you run the command. So if you're on some kind of big server thing and you run it, it's going to just make it the base directory level. Anyways, so what this is doing is it first asks the user or the CLI tool user what path do they want to take, what's going to be the name of the project, what's going to be the DB source, which is this stuff. You could separate it. It depends how intricate you want to get. And then the port, and then the git. And the reason why I did the git is mainly because I had to, because the server folder has to have a different mod file and everything than my outside project, so to speak. The one that actually generates the code, so it had to be different. Anyways, you could probably use this for doing JIT branch stuff or something, if you really want to take it down that road. Anyways, so then this creates the config, what I just showed you. Then this basically writes to it. And, well, let's see. Was it not? Why is it not doing it? Oh, there we go, just VS Code. So this just basically writes to the file and yeah, does the read write permissions and then kind of syncs it and everything. So then we have, and basically all these functions right here, these guys are ones that I made that are custom, because Viper, at least I was not able to figure out a way to write to the config file through Viper. I was just able to read from it. So I just came up with all these methods. Basically open up the file, and then this is the file, and then I guess you could say the data, so to speak, and then writes to it, and then, oh, it's been updated. And so what is it doing? Well, it means this file, and then it's writing this environment thing, which is what this is, and so on and so forth. All these different slash things are so that I can get quotes around the data I'm writing to the config file. And so it, as you can see, it kind of goes down the line here, and that's what this whole thing is. And then this is when the Viper actually kicks in, and it loads it into Viper, the config file, so that you can utilize it later. And I create this data structure because I want to use some of this data inside a template in order to generate the code for, let's say, the main file, whatever it is that you're doing. I had to capitalize this, the name. And where's this getting the data? Well, it's getting it from the originally these. So this name is one of the first things that you kind of do. And this is the example that you would do in order to run the command. So this is the CR command, which is this one, the one that we're on. The flag 0 or O for the port, which I have set up, excuse me, down here. And then as you could tell, this gets kind of into it a little bit. Anyways, so when you run this with all the different flags and you set it up, it'll create the files, which is what all this is, and then it'll load up the config file, and then I set it into a data structure, and then I have it this thing right here with the split is basically taking this serve thing and it's removing one or the other slashes. I suppose you could add the slash per one, but I just want it to be more feature rich and reusable, so I don't have to like worry about things, or other people don't. So that's why I have something that sort of strips it of those, and this is the variable, so it just says serve. Because there's certain functions that need the slash either at the beginning or the end. So it was just kind of a design decision. Anyways, so it creates the folder serve, which is this. Creates templates inside of it, and so all you have to do is plus slash whatever it is that you're going to be making. I suppose you can extend this a little bit further. You know, whatever. And then it makes the main file, which is this, and then and then the indexed actual HTML, which is inside here, and then yeah, and so this template is basically how you generate code. This is it. It's as complicated as it gets. One thing to note though is you want to make this text template only because there's escape characters in HTML that is there for security reasons when you actually create an HTML template, whereas this you're just generating code. So you're generating HTML that then would be run, which is fine to use the HTML/template in the generated code to run the HTML. But remember that if you use like those arrow signs, they don't always escape well. So if you use the text/template, you don't have to worry about that. So that when you actually do create the templated code here, I use the backtick because it's just formatted easier. You don't have to worry about the escape character thing because it's not code that is going to be run as is. It's going to be just generated that then runs other code. Anyways, yeah. I don't know if it still works because I was editing it and so I may have left it off at a bad place. But I moved it up to JIT just in case. But we'll see if it still works. So this is, and the reason why some of these have quotes and some of them don't is because just the way that they're kind of set up. I suppose I could have set up to not have that, but the problem was, oh yeah, the backtick here, and then these slashes and these marks. It gets kind of wild with concatenating strings and escape characters and everything. It's just easier to do it this way. You can do what you want. Anyways, you run it, and boop, creates the config file with all the stuff in it. Creates a server file with just the most basic stuff. Creates the go.mod, get .sum, and this is mainly because there's probably a command somewhere that oh yeah, and I think I showed this in another video to do bash, and the reason why I did this is because you need to do go mod init, and that G is that git or that JIT thing inside the config file, so that when you do run it, it gets automatically connected. You kind of get the idea. This I put in there for Go Fiber. You can put in whatever you want. I was just thinking of the easiest way to sort of have the least amount of generated code, but you can do whatever you want, sort of. It's not really that big of a deal. And so it generates all this stuff, but it's not really usable, right? It's just like a shell type stuff. And some of it you do have to go and hit save so that VS Code kind of knows, oh, everything's there. So then the next one you'd run is MD, and that's basically for model. And what's so different or important about this? Well, let's say you want to create another command if you know all that. Well, you load up the config into Viper, obviously, and you have some flags, like, because this is one where you're creating a model for like the database and the model. So this, you do have to have it dot and then dash the actual value. So dot separates the field name or column name to the date type to the actual value, and you need this. Well, I guess you get a, well, no, doing both dots would be, it'd be a real algorithm. But anyways, I just did it like this just because I was like, just want it to work, whatever. And you have it separated by spaces, and you have to have the thing in quotes because you have to cycle through this thing in order to spit out the initialized struct. Because when you get down to the actually generated code, this thing right here is actually creating the struct. And this is the templated code. And the model name is the model. This ranging part, this was the hard part. This took me very long to get the syntax right because you can put slice inside of the range. But the actual function for that, if I can even find it in here, because it's in here, to basically take this and turn it into an actual struct. You can see the model flag and then name person, and these are kind of like its properties for P. Let's see, get path, create DB. So this creates the database. And this is, again, I did the slash thing just to get serve. And then it's serve plus DB is the folder, just to make it unique. And then create the file serve plus slash DB plus DB plus the file name. It gets a little into it. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but sure, there's a way to simplify it, but I don't know. Anyways, it works, so whatever. So then we do a bash command to load up all the dependency stuff, and then this no escape thing, pointless, don't use it. If you just change this to text, and you don't need it. Yeah, it's only that no escape template function is only useful when you're actually building templates for HTML, not generating code. Anyways, yeah, because so like you could literally take this and just remove it and it'll do the same exact thing. Again, no lesson thing that took me a long time to realize. Anyways, so get property data type. This is where you get into the weeds. And this is what took me a very long time to do. So we're getting that string, this puppy, and so we're splitting it up with the space between here, and then we're for looping through it, and we're appending the property trim to dot, which is again another algorithm function to trim the dot and take only one side of it. So it I don't even know if you want me to keep explaining it, but it does that, and it gets the property, which would be just the name or age, whatever the property value is, and then it appends it into an array, and then we remove the dot, which is this thing with a space or nothing, whatever, and then we take that, we append it, we throw it into another array or slice or whatever you want to call it, and then we return the property. Yeah, and that's just for the property data. So then we have to do that for oh, that's for the type. This is for the value. So I had to do the same thing for getting this dash thing. You have to remember, you have to loop through it and spit it out as you loop it, but there's no way in Go templates to like do dot, then dot in order to spit out the erased data, like range through two arrays. It's not that I'm aware of. So I had to reappend everything and get rid of these marks and return it. And yeah, so this one kind of does it for the value, this one does it for the type, and so then the model name. And so once you have these like arrays and then the model name, then this one, I kind of vaguely remember this one because of how weird it was, because when you're looking to show the name and then the age and then the string after the name and then the int after the age and then the value, let's say you weren't going to use the data type, obviously, then you were just going to do the property and then the value. You have to, when you do the ranging through part, you have to range through the properties and then the values or whatever. So I don't know how to describe this without being too complicated, but it strips stuff and it throws more stuff into arrays, and eventually, and then this one took me a while to, I didn't want to run that, but this is just more algorithm stuff, and we're throwing it into a map, because you have, in order to then control the property, data type, and value for different instances of things, you have to set it up into a structured data source or data object or whatever you want to call it, map, so that you can control when it loops and when it skips. Yeah, it took me a little bit. Anyways, when you get past all that, you get two values, and I probably could have named these a little bit better, but I was just so happy that it worked. So this is the properties, this is the properties with no dot, and this is the value. And so that when you load up that data structure, you get the control and the template, the types, the property name, the values as you range through. Yeah. And then we do the shell command. So anyways, let's see if this works. I don't know if it will still, because I was updating it. But anyways, let's remember, I have these files right here that it generated so far that didn't really have a whole lot to them. Ooh, created a database file. Cool. And so that database file is in fact those property names and then their data types. And then in order to create a database table like that's generated, you now have to range through the properties and then use the values, and some of them are strings and some of them are integers. So that was a whole thing to figure out as well, to make sure that worked. It was a couple mornings before work. But it's over here if you want to take a dig. I think this is the one that separates. Is numeric, yeah. Yeah, that was a good time. Anyways, it generates it and everything and does that. Now we have another command that we can run, and this doesn't all have to be set up. I did a testing with it just runs all the commands together. Anyways, so we have one for the server, which just creates the server file and kind of connects stuff and generates that. I don't know if I used the Go Fiber in this one or the regular generated. Just did the regular generated one. So this one again. Boom. Creates a server folder with the server code. And no, this is not Go Fiber. This is just without a framework. It generated the context logger and just a handler, and then use Mux server, which is the built-in one. It does the chords for you and generates that, and then creates a handler and does the static files. So if you want to add images or CSS files or JS files, and then you notice it did this, which it should have generated the thing here, which is weird that it did not. It was working before where it generated the import too. I mean, I did it here, but it was working before with the import, which is weird that it did not. Because it should have done serve slash, well, no, the GitHub thing and then serve. I may have updated some that I shouldn't have or whatever on there. Yeah, update text. Yeah, the import thing. Oh, yeah, because of this guy. Yeah, I hit it in there twice, but it was generated twice. Another little thing. So that when we go into it... Oh, it didn't do it at all. Interesting. It should have replaced it with the JIT in the file. Why did it not? It made these. So why? Well, anyways, as you can tell, it gets pretty deep. Imagine the more complicated program you want to generate, the more deep it's going to get. And that's not that hard of a fix. Just, you got to test it a little bit inside this function. And just like spit it out and do, print out the file, all its parameters spit out, and then what's it actually doing then? Whatever, you get the idea. And then it has to redo all the mod stuff because to ensure that it's actually pulling in dependencies, even though right now this one didn't rate that dependency in there, but it did change this, so whatever. And so these are all the this function and then the C model. Well, when you go into here, see person, because that person is the C model, which is that data structure. Yeah, right here, which is model, which is C model is just the capitalized version, because sometimes you just need the lowercase model name for like the package, and then use uppercase for the function to be exportable. Whatever. Anyways, yeah, and that's I think that's about it so far. I was testing out stuff with Fiber a little bit, and then I tested stuff with Echo a little bit just to see what I could generate a little bit more. But but you could see from here, as long as you build those functions to loop through everything, generating code is really easy. It just takes a little bit of testing and a little bit of patience. That's all. And then you can pretty much make any file. And the only thing is, you have to use or do the CLI command to take in the flag values a certain way, which there's probably an easier way out there. I'm not aware of it. I was just trying to get this to work, but you can do a test function that then just calls up or runs these in bash with your shell command. This whole shell out thing. Put those in there and put into your test function, like I was kind of doing here, just all in one shot, and then you just run your test command and it generates all your code. Woo! I don't know. That's just an easy, quick way to test things, I guess. But again, this project is just for a single developer. You could make it into a team thing if you're creative enough and have those problems. But yeah, that's just my thing that I've been working on, and you can borrow from it, do whatever you want. Yeah, whatever helps. I spent way too much time researching how to split up the code and slicing stuff and Go templates, and a lot of times I was doing stuff wrong and I just had to backtrack a bit. And then I did get a little screwed up with some of the generating of the directory structuring when I was learning how to do that, and I deleted all my code. But yeah, and then you can see doing this with JIT commands as you generate. You can make a whole bot thing. Anyways, if you have any questions or anything, please let me know. Hopefully I can answer it with some of this stuff. It kind of goes in depth. Yeah, and yeah, just let me know if you need anything, alright? Thank you.